Yesterday, we were observing Shivaratri, and today is Purnima. The Purnima after the 14th day, because Shivaratri comes on the 14th day of the waning moon, the dark fortnight. So I'm going to read something from Srimad Bhagavatam. Shh. I'm going to read something from Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Shiva. And this evening we'll speak about the Purnima day when Jagannath Das Babaji disappeared. We're honoring him this evening. But this morning, this is a section from Canto 4, Chapter 24, Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord Shiva is giving some stotras to some very wonderful Vaishnavas. There's 10 brothers. Their name is the Prachetas. The Prachetas are sons of King Prachini. The time in creation, it's the very early stage of creation. And it's Satya Yuga. So the process of achieving spiritual perfection recommended for Satya Yuga is dhyayate, meditation. So these 10 brothers were requested by their father to assist him in creating good offspring to help Lord Brahma fill up the universe with good offspring. Like act as little Prajapatis. So before they were to begin that service for their father, their plan was to qualify themselves to have good offspring. And to qualify themselves, they were going to engage in austerities and meditation for 10,000 years. Can you imagine doing something for 10,000 years? Since the lifespan in the beginning of Satya Yuga was 100,000 years, it's an equivalent for someone in our present age to do something for 10 years, non-stop. Dhyayate, meditation non-stop for 10 years, nothing else. And they were going to do this meditation underwater. Meditation underwater for 10,000 years. But before they entered into the sea, they were greeted by Lord Shiva, who rose out of the sea. The nice paintings show he's in the sky, surrounded by Gandharvas and Apsaras and Kinnaras and other celestial beings, part of his entourage. A lot of activity back here. And so his plan is to give to these prachetas some stotras, some prayers to recite while they're engaged in their meditation underwater. So it means within their mind. But so it's like what Lord Shiva does. What does Lord Shiva do? Often we see paintings of Lord Shiva seated in meditation. So what's he meditating on? Well, in these stotras, it gives us the subject matter that he was meditating on. Shreyas, please stop. You have a cell phone addiction. I know some other people that have cell phone addiction. It's very detrimental to mental health, what to speak of spiritual health. Different. So I'm reading from Canto 4, Chapter 24, Text 59. And Lord Shiva is honoring, he's going to describe in detail the devotional service process that he engages in, but this verse is just describing the devotional service principle. Then comes the application of the principle. Devotional service. But in this case, it's primarily for both for Lord Shiva and for these prachetas, it's the mind. So sometimes when we engage in devotional service, we're doing something with our senses, but that sixth sense is somewhere else. It's out to lunch, or mindless, or mechanical. So it's important to connect the mind with your senses in devotional service. It takes practice. It's certainly possible. And Lord Shiva is going to describe that process. The devotee whose heart has been completely cleansed by the process of devotional service and who is favored by Bhakti Devi does not become bewildered by the external energy, which is just like a dark well. Being completely cleansed of all material contamination in this way, a devotee is able to understand very happily your name, fame, form, activities, etc. These 10 prachetas, Lord Shiva has already honored them as being elevated devotees of Vasudeva. Who's Vasudeva? Vasudeva, in one sense, Vasudeva is Krishna's father. Yeah, Vasudeva. But Vasudeva is the son, and Vasudeva is the father, right? So Vasudeva is the name of Krishna. And these prachetas, they're devotees of Vasudeva. He wants to give the garland. Our host. Our host. Okay, go right ahead. I see you had to put your camera down to do this. Let's get back to Srimad Bhagavatam and the song sung by Lord Shiva. Jayate, the process of spiritual elevation and perfection in such yuga, the shape of it is different in each of the 4 yugas, but the principle isn't different. Or how that jayate, the fixing the mind, is best accomplished in each of the 4 yugas differs. The principle doesn't change. So this is principle. Jayate, or fixing the heart or fixing the mind, on the object. There's Sanskrit words, but just like Vishaya and Ashraya, the Sanskrit words. So like in grammar, English grammar, subject, object, and verb, right? So in devotion, the subject is us, each one of us, and the object is Vasudeva, Krishna. And then there's the verb, that's service, the action upon or in relation to the object, subject, object. So the action is incomplete if the mind is out to lunch or absent, if we're not mindful. Not mindful. So Shiva is giving us a nice teaching to these nice devotees of Lord Vasudeva, the Prachetas, the importance of devotional service, where the object is the point of focus, and the subject that's rendering the service or offering the prayers or making the garland or hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam or doing whatever, the object is at the center of the mind's activity. So there's the ear, there's the eye, there's the other senses, and then there's the ruler of the senses, the predominating force of the senses. And they're meant to be aligned with the object, subject, object, in the medium of service. And when that person becomes absorbed, with their mind absorbed in the object, Vasudeva, then there's something that happens from Krishna's side, from the object side. And from that object side, he favors the subject or the worshipper or the devotee with his potency called Bhakti Devi. Now, we understand that Bhakti Devi is an expansion of Srimati Radharani. We could say an aspect of Radharani or an expansion of Radharani. She's Radharani's subpotency. She does what Radharani says. As Radharani gives the nod, Bhakti Devi is there. If Radharani is not giving the nod, then Bhakti Devi is in abeyance somewhere. The fullness of the mercy of Bhakti Devi is not going to be experienced. So the alignment of the mind with the object, Vasudeva, Krishna, is very important. Devi gives her blessings, and when Bhakti gave, the verse is saying, when Bhakti Devi gives her blessings, then the diluting potency doesn't dilute. It acts differently. You follow? Just this morning, at 6:30 this morning, I was conducting a Zoom call with devotees from China. There were 176 devotees from China on the Zoom call. And the very same topic was one of the topics that we covered this morning at 6:30. And it was expressed, I'm just giving another example. It was expressed by Srila Prabhupada in a book that he wrote in 1962 called Light of the Bhagavad. And this book is a description of Canto 10, Chapter 20, where the rainy season and the autumn season are described in Vrindavan. So there's a section in that chapter where it speaks of what happens after the rainy season. And what happens after the rainy season is rain stops, and then the clouds that were in the sky are no longer in the sky. So it's a very clear, clean sky. And the way that Prabhupada expresses this in light of the Bhagavad, no longer is one making distinctions. What part of the sky previously had clouds, what part of the sky previously had no clouds, because both of them are clear. And then from that, he's extracting that this is the process of self-realization, or the fruit of the process of self-realization. And that is where the disturbances that may be there other than when one is self-realized, they may be out there, but they're not acting on you in the same way. In other words, for the enlightened person or the liberated person or the self-realized person or the Krishna conscious person whose consciousness is connected to Krishna, that's what the first part of this is saying, then the world around such a person may be the same, but their experience of the world around them is not the same. And one can see what's what, but you see what's what, you see what's out there in a different way. And specifically, the bewildering influence of the world around us doesn't act in a bewildering way. Rather, it acts in a way that here's an opportunity for serving Krishna, here's another opportunity for serving Krishna. So whether it's good times or rough times, it's an opportunity for serving Krishna. That's the liberated stage. So that's what's being said here also. Something going on over there, everyone's looking over that way. Somebody's coming in. Come on in. Whoever's out there. There we go. Look who's there. Krishna Krishna. Look out, there's Gordatai right behind your back. We don't put our back to the deities. There's Gordatai. Good to see you all. A long drive from Boston. Okay, so we're going through the verse. This is song sung by Lord Shiva. He's glorifying the devotional service process. And when one mind becomes fixed on the object, Vasudeva, Krishna, then Krishna is pleased. And when Krishna is pleased, he activates his bhakti shakti in such a way that one's mind doesn't become disturbed. Even there's a cause for disturbance, one's mind doesn't become disturbed because that's the effect of the mind being fixed on Krishna or Vasudeva. It isn't bewildered by the configuration of the material energy today. And then it changes, and then it changes, and then it changes. Ever changing. And one isn't bewildered by change because one is not attached to the temporary. It is what it is, and you move, you use your intelligence according to what's appropriate for the temporary, and then it changes, and then it changes. But there's one thing that doesn't change, and that's the absorption in Vasudeva, the mind's absorption, and the interest to be engaged in service through the senses and with the mind fixed in that way. Then the material energy, the external energy, doesn't act the same way. The meaning specifically, it doesn't act in a bewildering way. You may not exactly understand what's going on, but you're not bewildered by not knowing what's going on. You're patient and waiting for some indication from Supersoul to give you the intelligence, what's the right thing to do in this circumstance. And unchanging is the attitude of wanting to please Krishna throughout the whole experience. In the verse, there's a metaphor, this being bewildered by the deluding potency, the Maya potency, is like being in a dark well. Now, it doesn't expand on that metaphor, but I can tell you that Srila Prabhupada expands on that metaphor in light of the Bhagavad in a number of ways. It's a metaphor that's used commonly in the Bhagavatam and in other by our Vaishnava poets also to indicate material existence. In material existence means forgetfulness. Spiritual existence means remembrance. Remembrance of what? Remembrance of what we have forgotten, specifically our eternal identity and our eternal relationship with the eternal Supreme. Material existence is forgetfulness of that. I haven't gotten to the purport yet. I'm still on the verse. A little sharing. This weekend was focused on Lord Shiva and Shivaratri. The previous weekend, there were a number of us in the Potomac Temple conducting a retreat on the topic of personalities in Krishna's Braja Leela. And the temple president in the Potomac Temple is Ananda Vrindavan Mataji. Ananda Vrindavan, twice each morning, she gave a similar introduction, which is along this line. That's why I'm thinking of it. Srila Prabhupada was visiting London in 1969, and a reporter came to interview him. And the reporter was asking Swamiji, why is it that you have come to London? What's the message you'd like to give to the people of London? Prabhupada's answer, I've come to remind you of that which you have forgotten. The interviewer didn't know what to say. But that's what Krishna consciousness is. It's something that we already know. It's just covered over with material consciousness. And material consciousness means, once again, forgetfulness. Spiritual consciousness means remembrance of what we've forgotten. Very simple. And the process of reminding ourselves or becoming reminded of what we've forgotten is the process of devotional service. The process of devotional service begins with sound, or shravanam. And then after shravanam comes vibrating that same sound, kirtanam. Just like when I first came here, whoever was here was engaged in shravanam kirtanam, or the process of chanting with musical accompaniment, but with or without, the sound vibration of Krishna's holy name, or the Maha Mantra. And that sound vibration has an effect, two primary effects, cleansing and awakening. The cleansing, cheto darpana marjanam, the cleansing of the mirror of the mind, or cleansing of consciousness, cleansing away the forgetfulness. That's the forgetfulness, that's the essence of material consciousness. And when that forgetfulness, proportionate to forgetfulness being removed, then knowledge takes its place. Or say it the other way, when light is on, darkness is dispelled. To most homes, at least here in America, there's an on-off switch. There's only two options. Just like a computer, 1 or 0. 1 is on and 0 is off. But there's also switches that are variable switches, dimmer switches, they're called. So you can make the light brighter, 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 or dimmer, 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 dimmer. And so consciousness is also brighter or dimmer, relatively proportionate to more bright means less darkness. Less darkness is achieved by more light. And that light is awakened by the light of the Bhagavad, or hearing transcendental sounds. Even if one doesn't understand, supposing this little girl, because she's very playful, she may not understand. Is purification going on anyways? Absolutely. Prabhupada's example is fire. Supposing a small child touches fire, is it going to burn or not burn? It's going to burn because it's fire. The fire isn't thinking, oh, the little child doesn't know that I burn, so I won't burn because she doesn't know, or he or she doesn't know. But it doesn't. That knowledge is not what carries the day. In a way, remembering what we've forgotten, it's part of remembering, but it's not the essence. The essence is the sound itself, because the sound itself, according to our transcendental teachings, sound is not different than the object. In the absolute plane, the sound and the object that the sound is denoting are the same, which isn't true for something material. Something material, the sound, water, 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 and the object, water, are different. But spiritual sound, the sound and the object are the same. And Twam, Nama Namino, the name and the object named are abhinna. So the process of remembering what we have forgotten is what we're doing. It's spiritual sound. So reading the Bhagavatam, that's light, and darkness is dispelled by light, light of the Bhagavad. And by the name, because the name is also non-different, and by hearing the name, engaging in Nam Sankirtan and engaging in japa, both Nam Sankirtan, congregational chanting together, or in your every morning, you rise in the morning, make the outside of the body clean, and then you make the inside of the body clean by Nam Sankirtan or Nama Japa. Jeto Darpana Marjanam, making the heart clean. So once again, when the heart becomes clean by that contact with sound vibration, what happens is Devi starts doing her thing. She realigns the heart towards Vasudeva, and then the external energy stops bewildering, and the external energy takes its proper position. What's the proper position? Opportunity for the living entity to serve Krishna. And so life is that variegated experience for a devotee. It's not the bewildering experience for one who is not a devotee. It's an opportunity, service opportunity. Different varieties of service opportunities provided by Krishna's energy. And the conclusion of this verse, being completely cleansed of all material contamination in this way, a devotee is able to understand very happily your fame, name, form, activities, etc. So now I'm going to read from the purport. And it's a nice purport, page and a half long. Prabhupada starts by making a reference to Lord Kapila Dev's teachings from Canto 3, Chapter 25. So many of you will know already who is Lord Kapila, and even if you don't know, even if you do know, you can hear again. If you don't know, here's who Lord Kapila is. There she is, the princess. So, Kapila Dev appeared, this is Canto 4. The narration of Kapila Dev appears in Canto 3. And chronologically, Kapila Dev appeared before the Prachetas appeared, both in the Bhagavatam as well as chronologically. And Kapila Dev appeared very, very early, right at the dawn of civilization, or the material creation, during one of Brahma's days. In one of Brahma's days, There's the first yuga is Satya Yuga, and he appeared very early in Satya Yuga, without all the details. And his main contribution or function or his gift to the world was giving Sankhya philosophy. What's Sankhya philosophy? In one sense, Prabhupada writes, Sankhya and devotional service are non-different. Or Sankhya is an integral part of devotional service, and therefore they're non-different. Because Sankhya, keeping it really simple, Sankhya means to know what's what. Know the relationship between all things and their source of emanation and the different divisions of those things, primarily matter and spirit. There's divisions of matter, and there's so many of them. And it depends on the system, but 24 varieties of categories of matter. And then there's categories of spirit. Like there's the living entity, there's the super soul within the heart of that living entity, there's the form of the Supreme Lord from whom the super soul is manifest. So in other words, there's variety in the realm of spirit, there's variety in the realm of matter, and Sankhya is teaching matter and spirit, and the controller of both. That's Sankhya. And when you know what's what, you know how to engage matter appropriately, and you know who you are as you're engaging yourself, interacting with matter appropriately. So that means one needs to know Dharma, and you align yourself with things that are to be done. And naturally, things that are not to be done or that are obstructions to matter, to spiritual consciousness, you don't indulge in those things. You refrain from those things. In other words, Dharma is, in one sense, Dharma is a means for spiritual elevation. And Dharma, in another sense, is just proper conduct for those who have the lights on. When you have your lights on, you know this is going to enhance bhakti, this is going to be detrimental to bhakti, and you select things that are favorable and deselect things that are unfavorable. You just refrain from them because they don't enhance bhakti. They don't enhance that primary sense of who you are and your relationship with the source of who you are. So that's the beginning part of this purport. Prabhupada is making reference to Kapila Dev's teaching in Sankhya. And the context, a little bit of the context. Kapila Dev was the only son. He had 9 elder sisters, but they all became married. And he, as the son, the only son, was now at a mature stage when his father, Kardama Muni, took permission from his son, who he knew to be the personality of Godhead, to resume his activities in the forest for setting a good example for the rest of the world, that when you reach a certain stage of life, your worldly duties are now done, and you turn your attention with full concentration upon the ultimate mission and purpose of human life. And so Kapila Dev was left with his mother, and his mother said, basically, I'm really attached. I've been with my husband for tens of thousands of years. That's a long time to be with anything. And I've become really attached. And he's a perfected soul, and he's not around anymore. And I'm really attached. And not only that, I know that you're not going to be around permanently either. Because you're the personality of Godhead. You've got stuff to do and places to go. So what should I do? Where's my shelter? He then, this is the beginning of chapter 25, and then he says, same thing that's in this verse, which is devotional service. Why? because devotional service is the means to connect with who you really are. And the shelter, the supreme in loving service, and then nothing is lost. That's not impermanent or transient. It doesn't change with time. Matter changes with time, and transcendence doesn't change with time. So take shelter of transcendence. And how do you get access to that transcendence? Yes. How do you get access to transcendence? Sadhu Sangha. What does Sadhu Sangha mean? Sadhu Sangha means what we're doing right now. Sadhu Sangha means associating with those who are connected to Sat. And that's Sadhu. Those who are connected to Sat are Sadhu. So Sadhu Sangha is the means of awakening, reviving that which we have forgotten, devotional service to Krishna, and the subject-object relationship. So Prabhupada begins his purport making a reference to an important verse. Satam prasangam mama virya samvidho bhavantirit karna rasayana kata tajjo shanadash apavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anupramishati. Even sounds nice. Simply by the association of pure devotees, satam prasangan, one can understand the transcendental name, fame, quality, and activities of the Supreme Personality. And then he makes a reference, same message spoken by a different form of the Lord, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he says it 3 times, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastre Koi, Lavamatra Sadhu Sangye, Sarva Siddhi Hoy, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Sarva Siddhi means all perfection arises or awakens, or that which is forgotten becomes manifest through the medium of Sadhu Sangha. Because when you're doing Sadhu Sangha, what do? You do with sadhus what sadhus do. That's what you do. What do sadhus do? Sadhus engage in devotional service. Bhajana Kriya. That's what sadhus do. They do activities that in relation to the Supreme, Bhajana Kriya. So you do Sadhu Sangha, you've got Bhajana Kriya taken care of. You've got Sadhu Sangha and Bhajana Kriya. What happens next? The things the coverings, the forgetfulness becomes relieved. Gradually, not presto, but gradually mitigated and diminished and made squeaky clean. Then the heart becomes clean, gradually. So Sadhu Sangha is, both Kapila and Lord Chaitanya are teaching, the doorway to enter into the realm of devotional service is Sadhu Sangha. And Sadhu Sangha is the means, in Devahuti's case, to become free from the bewildered state that she was experiencing due to natural attachment to her very beloved and qualified husband. He's gone. Kardamuni's gone, and she's attached, and the mind is attached, and there's bewilderment, just like the verse says. Simply by associating with a pure devotee, one becomes wonderfully advanced in Krishna consciousness. Sadhu Sangha, or association with a devotee, means always engaging in Krishna consciousness by chanting Hare Krishna mantra and by acting for Krishna. Specifically, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra purifies one, and this chanting is therefore recommended by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I said it already twice. Here it is in the book, Chaita Darpana Marjanam. This is the first line of the Ashtakam, or 8 teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Chaita Darpana Marjanam. There it is 4 times. So the mirror of the mind becomes darpana, becomes cleansed. Cheta darpana marjanam. When the mirror of the mind becomes cleansed. Cheta darpana marjanam. By chanting. More chanting, more cleansing. Especially if you're attentive. Supposing you're not attentive. I think all of us have the experience of inattentive or distracted chanting of one kind or another. So there's still something going on. But it's just a reflection of the something that is possible for us. So begin with distracted chanting. Begin somewhere. And by that distracted chanting or less than fully attentive chanting, the purification is less or slower, but still purification, and gradually, as one learns the importance of chanting or the importance of hearing that spiritual sound, just like hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, that's another spiritual sound. So one should hear it attentively. And then gradually the cleansing takes place, Cheta Darpana Marjanam. By chanting the names of Krishna, the mirror of the heart is cleansed, and the devotee loses interest in everything external. Interest means with the idea of seeing things of this world being objects for material enjoyment. Let me get more stuff, because when I have more stuff, I'll have more happiness. And when I have more happiness, everything's nice. The problem is that that's misleading. It's not that having more stuff leads to happiness. Having more stuff leads to frustration because it didn't produce the happiness you wanted. So you need a different variety of stuff or more of it or something or something or something. And then you lose it, and then there's lamentation. Like Devahuti's lamenting the loss of her husband. And it's a good object to be attached to, but things that are temporary, if you're attached to the temporary, it's a setup for misery. The way it works. In Krishna's language in Bhagavad Gita, Yehi samsparsha ja bhoga. Bhoga means enjoyment. Enjoyment of the senses and sense objects meet one another, and the expectation is there's going to be happiness over there. That's why I'm extending my senses to such and such object. But when one extends the senses to objects with the expectation of enjoyment, something else happens. Dukkha yonaya evate. The place of birth is called yoni. The place of birth gives rise to dukkha instead of sukha. The expectation of happiness through meeting of the senses with sense objects produces dukkha. Isn't that interesting? I wanted sukha and I got something, I got the opposite. Now there's something, because otherwise what keeps people moving? There's something, a little buzz, something, but it's not, it's very limited and very temporary. And the buzz that one experiences that keeps one going after the next one, is limited and temporary, and behind that buzz, there's dukkha. Very distressful experience. Now, what the verse is saying is when bhakti becomes strong, that experience of distress dissipates and is gone. You can move through the world without the unwanted part because you've changed the alignment to what's wanted. What's wanted in material consciousness is a byproduct of forgetfulness. That is, let me enjoy separately from Krishna. When that separate from Krishna enjoyment notion is reduced or eliminated by light, then you move through the same world, see the same set of sense objects, and it doesn't have the same bewildering effect. That's what the verse is saying. So the context of this verse is, again, it's Lord Shiva giving teachings to 10 men, the prachetas, who are very elevated persons. They're already devotees of Vasudeva, and they want to be qualified enough to produce the kind of children that their father, the king, would want to have populate the universe, the world in which we live and beyond the universe. When one's heart is not pure, he cannot see how things are related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Idam hi Vishvam Bhagavan Ivetara. Verse from first canto. He whose heart is purified can see the whole cosmic manifestation is but Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he whose heart is contaminated sees things differently. Therefore, by sat sangha, or association with devotees, one becomes perfectly pure in heart. And just one more paragraph and we're done. One who is pure in heart is never attracted by the external energy, which urges the individual soul to try to dominate material nature. The pure heart of a devotee is never disturbed when he executes devotional service in the form of hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. In all, there are 9 processes one can follow in the execution of devotional service. In any case, a pure-hearted devotee is never disturbed. The bhakti yoga process must be carried out by avoiding the 10 offenses one can commit while chanting Maha Mantra, and the 64 offenses one can commit while worshiping the deity. When a devotee strictly follows the rules and regulations, Bhakti Devi becomes very much satisfied with him, her, and at that time, he, it's him or her, is never disturbed by anything external. A devotee is also called a muni. Muni means thoughtful. A devotee is as thoughtful as a non-devotee is speculative. So that's what the mind does, again, because that's Satya Yuga, and they're going to do some meditation for 10,000 years. So how to align the mind so that you can sit still for 10,000 years. Can you imagine that? Sitting still for 10,000 years? I'm looking at you, don't look behind you. 10,000 years of sitting still. And you don't become a stone, you become happy. Ooh. Doesn't sound fun, does it? No. The word muni means thoughtful. A devotee is as thoughtful as the non-devotee is speculative. The non-devotee's speculation is impure, but the devotee's thoughts are pure. Lord Kapila and Shukadev Goswami are also called Muni. And Vyasadeva is addressed as Mahamuni. A devotee is addressed as Muni, or thoughtful, when he purely understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The conclusion is that when one's heart is purified by the association of devotees and by the avoidance of the offenses committed while chanting and worshiping the Lord, the transcendental name, form, and activities of the Lord become revealed. So there's more. This is a nice section from Bhagavatam. Lord Shiva is giving nice instructions to these 10 young men who are on a mission on behalf of their father to become qualified enough to have good offspring. And at the end, when he completes these stotras, they offer their respects to him, they circumambulate him, he disappears as he mysteriously appeared, they enter the sea, they engage in their dhyan process, meditation process, underwater, and lo and behold, Lord Vishnu comes while they're underwater, standing on the back of Garuda, flapping his wings in the water. Do not get it, but that's what it says. And they offer prayers to him. Of course, they're underwater, so they're offering prayers in their mind. And then he speaks to them in such a way they can understand. And he gives his blessings to them. The gift that was given to them by Lord Shiva is a gift that we can receive if we want to, and hear as they heard, and then carry out what they heard, that is, offer these stotras to the Supreme Lord. And if he becomes pleased, because the devotee, Lord Shiva, was giving them that opportunity, the bhakti opportunity, then they achieve perfection. So we can also. It takes a while, but elevation can happen very quickly. Just starting with the hearing process. Let's see if there's some discussion. Look at your friend, she's so peaceful. He's smiling. Yes.
So, as you mentioned, elevation is relatively easier once you start strong.
Yes.
But as a practicing sadhaka, you might when anarthas start manifesting, which are already there, to get over them. And there is no fault of anyone else besides myself, in my case, to have that enthusiasm and then have faith to continue on the.
By more sadhu sangha and more shravanam. When you get on a boat, this, thinking of Prabhupada crossing the sea, he was told by the captain, he was told by the lady that gave him the passage on her steamship, you're not going to survive. It's very rough. But he got on the boat, and sure enough, it was rough. So, similarly, when we begin the bhakti process and there's the cleansing that goes on, it gets rough. Supposing you don't like the rough. Doesn't mean that those anarthas are going to stop acting. It's just going to be on their own timetable. And they're going to control us in a different way. And so the cleansing it may come out very quickly. Prabhupada's example it's a nice example. Supposing you go into a room that hasn't been cleaned in decades. There's dust everywhere. But you want to make it clean. So you start the process of making it clean. What happens? There's dust all over the place, flying in the air. And stay at it, because after some time it becomes clean. When it's clean, then it's very inviting. So that's like cleansing the heart. The anarthas that are there don't get up and go away because you don't do the cleansing. They're just going to act in a different way and keep us covered in ignorance. So as you're moving from ignorance to knowledge, there's a transition. And it can be a little uncomfortable, as you said, like and bewildering, and like, what's going on? And I want to be happy, and this other stuff is going on. So the sadhu sangha is necessary, because sadhu sangha can help you stay clear on what's going on. This is an artha nivritti, don't worry. It's a good sign. And just make sure, as you're going through that you stay clear what the goal is, as well as what's going on. Like it's not the same, but it's like putting in the destination in your GPS. Be really clear what the destination is, otherwise you're not going to get there. But when you're clear what the destination is and everything is operating, maybe a little, especially here in Connecticut, there's so many little streets and roads. It's, it's different than some other parts of the country. But, if you got your GPS is in order, you'll get there. Sometimes hills, sometimes curves, sometimes something, this and that. But stay with it. So similarly, not exactly the same, but when the destination and the means to reach the destination are clear, then you continue to progress with the expectation that there's going to be this easiness as cleansing is going on. That's a good sign. Cleansing is going on. Now, the answer that I gave you is the answer that Prabhupada gave to somebody who asked a similar question. Understand this, and how do I remain enthusiastic? Know that it's a good sign. It's cleansing is going on. Stay with it. Just make sure that you have the right thing in your GPS. You know what the goal is, and you're applying yourself to the process carefully, properly. It means know what is to be done. You accept those things that are favorable, and things that are detrimental, you try to stay away from them. Not try. You stay away from them. As best you can. And stay and stay and stay. Cleansing, cleansing, cleansing. Turbulence, because dust is flying around the room and stuff like that. The heart is disoriented. It's like being a teenager. Only a spiritual teenager. Something like that. Turbulent. Not easy. Because you're going from where you are, from dependent to independent. In these material metaphor. We're never independent. But making decisions that are generated from my sense of my mission in life and so on. And it's not easy. It's okay. Sadhusanga and bhajana kriya. Just stay with it. And keep the goal in your GPS. Yes, Manish. You should be what? I'm thinking of three things. One of them is a biblical expression. There's Vedic expressions, but seek and you shall. You know that one. So there is, your question is something similar to what a young woman in George Mason University asked. the beginning was, I don't know what Bhagavad Gita is. In the end, he asked a question saying, I understand for spiritual progress, it's important to have a spiritual teacher. Now, how do I discern what are the qualities in a spiritual teacher that I should be looking for? No, it's there. It's right in this chapter. It's in this chapter of the Bhagavatam, and it's in chapter 25 of Canto 3. So know what the symptoms are, characteristics Prabhupada uses, lakshana, the swarupa, tatastha lakshana, primary and secondary characteristics. And you look at an object through a lens, and the lens you hold up to light so you can see the object. And so if you don't do your homework, then you don't know what the lens is and what the light is. And that's, somebody else isn't going to do that for you. But if you do know, then you continue to do that. And that's the sadhu-like persons who you become most close to, and become close to those who are most sadhu-like. It doesn't mean other ones can just take a, jump in the lake. It means your affinity for that sangha isn't the same, but you recognize at the same time in the heart of such and such persons that the bell doesn't ring yet. They're on the path, and I want to respect the bhakti that's in their heart. So it's respect, but it's not the same degree of shelter taking and affinity. So it's just degrees of sadhuness or degrees of bhakti, quality or characteristics. So don't have an expectation of someone that doesn't have those characteristics. Those that have the characteristics, be very careful. Once you've understood these persons are on the trajectory that's very clear. The primary characteristic is there, and the secondary characteristics are gradually becoming more and more manifest in their lives. And over a period of time, I have observed, I'm looking through the lens. So that's like finding the right sadhu. Then I would say that have the actual characteristics. I would say the greater responsibility, not just equal, but even greater responsibility, is that you, me, and every one of us look inside and look to the means of making the heart clean. Because when the heart is clean, then desires are going to be clean. And when the desires are going to be clean, then there's going to be reciprocation to those desires that are clean. Or seek and you shall find. That's the first business. The second business is, who's the right sadhu out there in the universe? There are such persons for sure. And do I have the qualification to discern? Everyone has a conception of life. You included, everyone. And largely those conceptions of life are resting upon the modes of nature. And so your understanding or anyone else's understanding is going to be according to their conceptions, which may not be, conception-wise, may not be in line with Srimad Bhagavatam's teaching. So become clear what the teaching is, and try your best to use that as the lens. And then there's this subjective evaluation. This goes to the introspection part, recognizing that I'm not there yet, and therefore the way that I'm looking at the world around me or the possible sadhus with whom I'd like to associate, there isn't as much clarity as I know there should be. So the weakness, both, and then the conception can become progressively clearer. And my perception of where those characteristics rest will be progressively clearer. Tonight, I'm going to be speaking about Jagannath Das Babaji because it's his disappearance day. And he was way up there. And some of the things that he did, worldly people don't understand. Worldly people may try to imitate, but they're worldly people that whether imitate or just plain don't understand. He's in another another plane of existence. And his way of interacting, of valuing, for example, here's one example. In Vrindavan, he, whether it was to teach an example or it just was his heart, he went to a street sweeper and asked a street sweeper for a chapati. And the other sadhus who were in his company said, "Why are you doing this? You're a Brahmana, Vaishnava, exalted soul. You don't ask for alms, take the remnants of someone that's a street sweeper." And his reply was, "You apparently don't understand how valuable is a Vaishnava from Vrindavan. The dust from their feet is worshipable. And if I can get something from them, I'll be so much benefited." So it may not be in accord with norms of social behavior. Now, that's Jagannath Das Babaji, who did what he did consciously, not necessarily to shock his fellow sadhus, but, because it was his faith. And worldly people, those who don't have a spiritual conception, may not be able to understand it. They may not ask, they may just judge. So those kinds of things go on. And there's many other things. Jagannath Das Babaji was in it. So that's not you or me on his platform. So our platform is the guidance of Scripture. And first business, make the heart clean. Second, look through the lens of Scripture and evaluate as best we can, because we're not pure yet, to see things through the lens of Scripture. And be cautious. Let shelter taking be something that's organic and it takes its time, organic. And then some genuine faith. It's not, when you have the genuine thing, genuine faith, and it's not shaken. It's okay. Anything else? Yes.
Just go everywhere.
I got it. The answer in Bhagavad Gita is abhyasa. Practice. Abhyasa yoga yuktena cetasa nanyagamino. Na anya, no other. So how do you practice? That's the next question. So here's an answer that comes from Patanjali. You've heard Patanjali Yoga Sutras, number 4 or something like that. He gives a definition of abhyasa. It's a good one. It's really short. It's a sutra. So there's 3 parts to abhyasa, or practice. 3. 1, every day. 2, over a prolonged period of time. There's Sanskrit terms. And 3, with faith. Every day, prolonged period of time with faith. Now, faith means there's a scriptural foundation for that faith. It's not something you fabricated. Then it's going to get me there. And that's you practice. So, taking your example, here, tomorrow morning or whenever you do your puja, mind has such and such tendency. Now, let me pause before I begin, not just rush into it, but I'm going to go into a nice mode of goodness reflective space and think about what is it that I'm going to be doing for the next 5 minutes or whatever the period of time you're doing your puja. And I'm attempting, according to the guidelines of Scripture, to make a connection. Yoga, connection with the source of everything. And this is the method. These are the recommended procedures. These are the do nots. So I know what they are. And now I'm going to go into that chamber, that space, where the heart is going to make a connection. When you practice, it can happen very quickly. But if you're not practiced, it may take some time to just do that warm up. And then you prepare internally, and then the senses, the working senses are engaged, while the mind is also engaged. It's the same point as what we started with, the mindfulness. Mindfulness, 3 parts. So you go into this nice, say it again, this nice reflective, before you do, let me get in the mode of goodness now, because I'm going to do something that's meant for elevation, purification, mind control. But the object of the mind is going to be directed towards is transcendence, or the Supreme Person, loving service to the Supreme Person. So with it, the puja is the deity form. You just do a little catechism, a little practice, of what's what. You do the sambandha, and then before you do the abhideya, practice. This is the method. This is what's what. Here I go. So the soul is trying to connect with that which is beyond the capacity of my senses to see. Adhoksaja is beyond the senses to see. But I have faith based on scripture. Krishna is going to accept this. So now, because it's for Krishna, I'm asking him to please accept me and my service. Let me be mindful, at least for the 5-10 minutes or whatever it is, the duration of your puja. And then you feel something instead of distracted. And then you want to do it more. But, start with, make the connection. And that's the abhyasa. Thanks for your honest question. But, it's not unique to you. It's someone is doing something and we're distracted because the mind is all over the place. Sure, we can all raise our hand and say, yeah. But then there's a method. And supposing it takes a long time, like, Manisha's statement. So for you, it may also take a long time. That's okay. It's okay. We're not in a race, not a win-lose situation. We're in a relationship. And the relationship is what's important. And when you focus on the relationship, that gives you enthusiasm, because we all want to love and be loved. Universal. And the best lovable object is the Supreme lovable person. And I want to make that connection because I'm not there yet. I want to be there. So this is a method. So, and the more the purposefulness, the mindfulness, as you're, instead of distractedness, then the more you're going to feel something. You're going to feel connected. It's a nice feeling. The disconnected is not a nice feeling. And so it's not just when you're doing puja, it's like 24/7. It's the consciousness that the conditioned soul carries. So it's not shame on you, you're a conditioned soul. It's just, we're all conditioned souls. There's shame on all of us. And let us take the method that's going to get us free from that conditioning. That's what this verse is speaking. So your question is right on the topic. Abhyasa. And in sadhusanga, in association with those who are further along the path than we are, we look up to them and seek service to them, their mercy, their kindness, and their good energy, their good focus, so that we become more like them. However long it takes, that's how long it takes. It's quite okay. Anything else? Looking at our host over here. Anything? Okay. He's going to glorify you. Put your earplugs in. The part that you know, and then there's the etc. that you may not know. But, the life of such a person. The service tendency, this is Jiva Goswami. I like Jiva Goswami. I'm a fan of Jiva Goswami. He explains that the service tendency is like a seed. And when that service tendency can make a connection with Krishna, and the connection with Krishna of a service tendency is through Vaishnavas, those who are connected to Krishna, then that service tendency gets elevated and elevated and elevated and elevated. Slowly, but elevated service tendency towards the Supreme. And that's a seed that can grow and grow and grow. When service to the Vaishnavas takes place, it's service in any way, that's mode of good. And when mode of goodness becomes connected to Krishna through his devotees, it becomes spiritualized further and further and further. And then Krishna is pleased. And as we just read in the verse, Krishna then dispatches Bhakti Devi to help clean the heart of that person. More, and more, and more. Because Krishna is pleased. And then it becomes like the cloudless sky in the autumn season, and self-realization starts to become slowly one's way of life. We have to be careful, not become complacent. Or be careful, and as Prabhupada wrote in the purport, be careful not to make offenses against the holy name and offenses against the deity. We should be careful, but continue and continue and continue. That's the Abhyasa message. And then it gets brighter and brighter, gradually. And then the darkness is dispelled as the light comes on, brighter and brighter. I'm facing over here, not looking over here, but anything from over here? Okay. Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I beg your pardon? How about this? I'll distribute some Mahaprasadam and you do the arti. I have some Mahaprasadam. We brought some Mahaprasadam. I'm so behind in things that I'm supposed to be doing. I have 3 pages of things I'm supposed to be doing that I haven't done yet. And there's deadlines for all of them. I'm being asked to do lots of things that I can't do. So this is, if you don't mind, you do the arti and I'll distribute the prasadam. Yeah.